Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face, my card making space, and more holiday cards. I pulled out a BetterPress Letterpress plate set from Spellbinders that I had purchased months ago. I forget when. I've had it for a while and it's been sitting here, and then finally got a chance to pull it out and use it. For those that aren't aware or a little newer, the Spellbinders BetterPress, I love it. I need to use it more often. I do have a playlist of videos I've done using it in many different ways. I will post that in the end screen at the very end of the video. I will also have my playlist of the holiday cards I've done so far. And like always, I will continue to add to it. I usually make holiday cards right up, sometimes even a little after Christmas, because all the extras, I save them to send out next year. And I will also post a link to the playlist of the cards and videos I've done using wax seals, because I pulled out some of my wax seal goodies. For those, again, that have, watched me for a while, I have a soft spot for wax seals. They intrigue me. I have a lot of them. Lots of supplies, lots of wax seal, stampers, all the things. I don't use them very often in videos, but this one was just perfect for it. So I used some of my wax seal goodies. So at the end of this video as well, I'll put that playlist. So lots of playlists, all sorts of things to find and check out. And then lastly, I will have everything I used in today's video. Those will be listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up ordering some things, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills, keeps all the heaters going so that I can keep bringing videos to everyone. And I think that's it for the housekeeping. Yeah, let's get into making the cards. Alrighty, so I am using the sealed poinsettia stems BetterPress press plate and die set from Spellbinders. And the first mistake I did was cutting down my watercolor paper, and this will make sense in a couple minutes, but I trimmed it down to the size I wanted the finished piece to be. I should have left it. Again, it'll make sense in a minute, but I'm just using Canson XL watercolor paper. It works great in the BetterPress. Now, for the absolute best results, the BetterPress, 100% cotton paper. Oh, that stuff is nice. Do I have a bunch of it? Yep. Do I hoard it? Yup. Do I need to listen to my own advice and use it? Uh-huh. Still use the Canson. So, it is what it is. Anyway, I taped my piece of watercolor paper to the clear plate. I've got my press plate on is it the platen? One's the platen, one's the chase. I always forget which is which. It's on the gray magnetic one, whatever. And I'm inking it up with the black BetterPress ink using the full-size ink pad because I had purchased that. It's nice for larger plates. It's just faster. And I'll show later the little one that you get with the BetterPress. Either one. They work great. So did that. Put the clear plate onto the BetterPress, ran it through, and perfection. I really wish people could see and feel the texture. I love my BetterPress. I really do. So anywho, I'm just going to keep going through this process. I keep the tape in the same spot, and I just keep taping the piece of watercolor paper in the same spot, re-ink the plate, and then just run it through my Platinum 6 die cut machine. The Platinum 6 die cut machine is made by Spellbinders, so these work. There is a compatibility chart on the Spellbinders website for different machines. People ask me a lot. I can only comment on this one. It does not work in the Empress, the Anna Griffin Empress machine. Will not work in that one. That's all I can comment on because those are the two machines that I use. So I have a Platinum 6 that I keep for this and for my glimmer hot foiling. And they work a treat. And it's just what I like, So I ended up doing this 4 times. And then after I had pressed the image into these 4 panels, I was digging through my stash looking for something else, and I came across, I've got this die set. This is the Perfect Touch rectangle die set. This is why I should have kept the watercolor paper larger and not trimmed it down, because this one wafer die is pretty much the exact same size as my backgrounds. But I really like it. Does this fun little, it's not even a scallop. I don't even want you like a little curvy stitch edge. You'll see it. I'll show it on screen and you'll see it more when I watercolor these backgrounds. But I just taped the die into place and made it all work. It was a little finicky and a little annoying, but serves me right for cutting down the watercolor paper. And I just didn't want to waste it, even though Canson XL watercolor paper is cheap. But I made it work. And then I've got that fun little edge now on all of these pieces. So then for the watercoloring, I'm just using one of my Altenew watercolor palettes and a water brush. This is really, really simple. Like, it's another thing that I think anyone can do. I've talked about this before with specifically things that have been like using a press plate on like watercolor paper with the BetterPress black ink. It's hard to explain, but you know how I always talk about when I'm watercoloring, like I like my images to be heat embossed because I like that raised edge, you know, the bumper pads that keep things a little more contained. Even though BetterPress is pressed in, so in a sense it's the opposite of a raised edge, it still kind of creates a very similar effect in keeping things a little more contained on the image, and I don't have to worry so much about things kind of bleeding into each other, that sort of a thing. And then the other thing to remember is it doesn't need to be perfect. Like I just used a water brush and just filled in everything. I didn't really do anything too special. As each area dried, I would go back in with a bit less water, a bit more color to add little darker areas. So like on those holly leaves, I did with a brighter green. When they were a little more dry, I just went in with a little bit darker of a green and kind of scribbled it down like the center. I'm going to do the same thing with this little poinsettia. I just used a brighter red with a little more water, a little less color. And then when I go in with another layer, it's a little more color, a little less water. And I just, again, kind of scribble it more towards like the spine of each petal. And the pine was easy. It was just little flicks, you know, just drew in little flicks of the darker green. And yeah, these were fun. I only showed the one, coloring the one. All the other ones I did the exact same way. This is another one of those things where it's like you do everything. If you're doing multiples, you do everything in batches, you know. So I did pressing of the background, did all of that at once. Then I die cut them all at the same time. Then I watercolored them all, you know, back to back. And if you work in batches, it just makes it easier, especially if you're going to do tons of them. So after I was done my watercoloring, everything's dry. I used the watercolors to add some splatter. And for this, I just did it right on my desk because they're watercolors, they just wipe like the splatter I get on my like glass work surface. It just wiped off. So I used the green and I had a fan brush with water on it. And just kind of swirled that in there, splattered that onto all four of these backgrounds, and then decided to add a bit of red as well. The red I went in with a little lighter hand because red can start to look a little bit like a crime scene when you're splattering it. Depends on the style and maybe who you're sending it to, you know, but a little lighter hand with that one. But added the red, added the green. I'm going to let these dry, which again didn't take very long. Also, that's a randomly odd perk of me working in my garage with all my heaters going and stuff, is things dry a lot quicker. I've got like heat and airflow like moving around more, so stuff dries faster. It's kind of nice. Anyway, with those, I decided to also add, of course, white splatter. So this time I put these into my splat box to keep this a little more contained. Because these I splattered the dickens out of. And again, you don't really see the white like on camera, like on the rest of the background for the most part. But it's there and you can see it in real life. And I do love adding it to holiday cards. So heavily splattered these with the white gouache that I had thinned out with a bit of water. Using that same fan brush and just went to town with this, you know? So after I had added all of my splatter, set those aside to dry, and kind of cleared space on my desktop here so I can start playing with my wax seals. And it's been a while since I've used these. So I've got my little furnace and my little tea light. So I lit my tea light, get my furnace in place, my spoon. I'm using candy apple wax beads. These are gorgeous. Oh, I'd purchased these, I think, at the same time when I bought the press plate. I'm not a big red person. Like, I don't use red very often, but for holiday cards, I use it a lot. But these are seriously gorgeous. They're very kind of metallic-y. Love them. So I put like 4 beads in the spoon, let it melt. I use one of my little pokey tools because I can't help myself. That's another thing I like to do. Like, I'll sit there and play with it, and you'll see that too. And for this first one, I did a test just because it's been a while since I've, made a wax seal. So I just poured it onto my silicone mat, pressed my wax stamper into it, and it's like, okay, good. Got the feel for it again, how much I need to pour, we're good to go. You could do them just like this, especially if you're not comfortable with, pouring directly onto your card or whatever. And then you can adhere them. And I'll link, there's options for good adhesive. And in my playlist, I've talked about adhesives and different things because a lot of glues, in my opinion, don't work with wax seals because they're wax, So it might seem like it's holding, but a lot of adhesives don't. But I will post a link to one of the ones that works quite well. So you could pour them onto a silicone mat like this, make your wax seals, and then adhere them after. That's fine. But I wanted to pour these directly onto these backgrounds, and that's what I did. So for some, it might be nerve-wracking, so just do it separately and then adhere them. You'll be fine. But for me, I was just like, let's do this. So I did. I poured it right onto the background there and pressed the stamper into it. And this is Spellbinders Merry Christmas one. This came out a while ago. And I was trying to show, it's hard to see on camera, but I've got a little black dot. I used a Sharpie marker and put a little black dot on the stamper itself. That's to show me where the bottom of the stamper is because this one has writing on it. So I've made little visual clues so that I know if I'm trying to line up words, things like that. So I've got a little black dot on there so I know that since I'm doing this directly onto my panels, that the Merry Christmas word is going to be not upside down. And then another thing, if you're doing multiples with one wax stamper, whether you're doing it separately or on your backgrounds, I highly recommend, I just got a little Ziploc bag and I put ice in it. And I set the stamper on that because the stamper itself starts to absorb the heat from the hot wax. And after a few uses, it will not seal properly because it gets too warm. So if you're doing a batch of these over and over and over again, highly recommend just a bag with some ice in it. It just keeps the stamper from getting warm so that it can actually make that impression. And then I just kept repeating. So that first one that I did a tester of, I'd cut it up and threw it right back in the spoon, melted it again. Because I don't waste any of my wax, whatever's left over, and I'll show that to you. I just pour it onto the silicone mat, let it cool off, and I'll throw that back in the package so that the next time I go to use this color, that little blob of wax ain't getting wasted. So I just kept working my way through all of these panels, pouring the wax on there. And then when I was done, pour the wax, whatever's left over, onto my little silicone mat. And then you can let the spoon just cool off completely and the wax will peel out of it. I just very carefully use paper towel while everything's still hot. Again, carefully, because that spoon is incredibly hot. The furnace is incredibly hot. But I just make sure not to touch it with my skin, and I wipe everything out, and then it's good to go. And then we're done. So the other thing is to enhance the lettering. I am using a metallic paint pen, and I've got it in the previous videos in my playlist. I've tested all kinds of things to, add color, enhance, etc. A lot of things don't work because, again, we're dealing with wax and it repels most water-based mediums and paints and things like that. But metallic paint markers work really well. I did test this with a white Sharpie that I had in my stash, and it didn't work at all. It just was beating up on the wax because that's what I wanted, was white. But all the ones I had on hand just weren't working, and I was like, I'll just use silver instead. So I'm using the Spectrum Noir Quicksilver metallic paint marker, and I'll link. There's a bunch of colors available. I've got the silver, the gold, and I think silver, gold, and maybe bronze. I'm not sure, but there's like rose gold and a couple other ones, like champagne, I think. So I'm like, I might have to get some of those other ones too. But I'll post links with the silver ones. You can check them out. And I just very lightly I'm not pressing with this marker either. I'm just very lightly kind of tracing the script and then the little design. And that's it. It stays. It's not going to wipe off. It works on top of the wax. Love. So then you can actually read properly the script and everything that it says Merry Christmas. And I love it. These were so fun. And I'm so glad. I'm like, this was just a fluke that these all turned out. And they're not the same. You know, not every wax impression on all these cards is perfect. Again, perfection's overrated. I know some really get hung up on they need to be perfectly round. I managed to get one of the 4 was like perfectly round. The other ones, they weren't. And that's fine. Like they're handmade, you know, and I enjoy it. So anyway, once I was done all that, for my backgrounds, I pulled out this embossing folder. This is Simon Says Stamps Thread Plaid, I think. Yes, Thread Plaid 3D embossing folder. And I was using some green apple cardstock with that. And I ran that through my Empress machine with the folder and embossed that plaid background onto it. And then I took an emerald shade of ink. This is Rainbow Splash Emerald ink and a blending brush and lightly blended this around the perimeter of all of these pieces. And that really like brings out that plaid pattern. So I went around and I did this to all 4 of these backgrounds. And I didn't worry about like getting like a super perfect blend because all we're going to see is the very outer edges of this because the main, you know, pressed panel and the wax seal is going to cover up all of that. So I went around and just blended this onto all 4 of these panels. And then once I've got everything blended, I'm going to adhere these to the background using craft tacky glue. And all of the pressed panels are just a smidge wonky because running them through with the BetterPress, you know, it pressing it in will sometimes make it not flat, I guess is the easiest way to describe it. So after I adhere it to the background, and then I'm going to adhere the background to the card base, I then use my big glass board magnets to hold everything down. As you can see, the one already that is done and the glue is drying. So I adhered the background or the card front to the background, and in the background I'm going to adhere to my card base, which is that same green apple cardstock that is top folding, and it's an A2 size card, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I adhered all those pieces together and then just stuck my magnets on top to hold everything down while the glue dries. And then we're good to go on that. And then for the insides of my cards, I have some panels of white cardstock that I didn't cut down because by this point I learned my lesson. I'm not going to die cut these panels, but I am going to trim them down. But these right now are A2 size panels of just white cardstock. And this time I lined up that poinsettia plate towards the edge of the panel because I don't want it covering the whole inside of the card. And then got my tape lined up again because I just keep these stuck to the clear BetterPress plate, and then I'll just keep reusing them until they're not sticky anymore. So got my cardstock taped into place, and then this time I'm inking this up with another Rainbow Splash ink. This is lime ink. This works on these plates, these inks. So the Rainbow Splash, Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated, Concord and 9th inks. The thing to remember with these inks are the ink pads are foam, not felt. So they're very mushy. So you just need to use a very light hand inking up your press plates. Like I very gently tap it because if you press, you'll get ink everywhere because these ink pads are soft, but they work. I've used so many different inks with my BetterPress. That's another reason why I love it. I just keep pulling out different things, different papers, different inks, and so far so good. So I inked up all those backgrounds with that plate and the lime ink. And then I took some bits of just red cardstock. And in the sealed poinsettia stems set, there's some sentiments. There's also a circle wafer die. So if you don't like or have zero interest in messing around with wax seals, a set like this, you can use the sentiments and then die cut them with the circle die that comes with it and adhere that into place and skip messing around with wax seals altogether. So I used the little pieces of red cardstock and I was inking up the the little sentiment with the black BetterPress ink using the little ink pad that comes with it. That's a little more, it gives you a little more control because that's just a little sentiment, you know, and the big ink pad, it's like I would have got ink just everywhere. So the little one worked. And same thing, just repetitive. I just inked it up, ran it through my machine, put another piece of cardstock into place, inked it up, repeat until I had all 4 pressed. And then I die cut them with the little coordinating circle die that comes with the Poinsettia stems set. And then my backgrounds, I trim down after I press them so that they're smaller than the insides of the card. So I trim them down to about 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I'm going to adhere those little circle sentiments right over the stems. So the insides will all say joy to all. So get those adhered. And then after I get those adhered on top of the stems on the backgrounds, then I'll adhere these to the insides of all of the cards. So again, just doing everything all in one step. So get these adhered, again, just using the craft tacky glue. And then once the insides are adhered to all the insides of the cards, as my final bit of embellishment to bring in a little extra bling, and also it kind of ties it in with the silver metallic pen I used on the wax seals, I've got these clear, positively dazzling gems from Simon Says Stamp, and I just arrange them onto these cards. And since I'm doing multiples, just put them all in the same spot. Makes things easier. So arrange them into place where I wanted them. And then I'm just going to pick them up with my little embellishment wand and adhere them into place with craft tacky glue. And then once these are adhered, let the glue dry and all these cards are complete. So like I mentioned in the intro, the playlist I was talking about, my BetterPress playlist, my wax seal playlist, my holiday playlist, those will all be in the end screen at the very end of the video. So you can check them out if there's, videos you missed or stuff you want to learn more about, etc. Those will be there. And then in the description box below the video, look at that texture. Look at it. Love it. These were so fun to make. Anyway, linked below the video, if you expand the description box, I'll link to my blog post. I'll have my supply list. Everything will be listed and linked for you to check out. If you're interested, just go on down below the video and it'll all be there for you. And as always, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!